Namaste. Welcome back to Waking Up with Mindful Surrender Yoga with Nancy. And we are going to continue answering questions from the jar of many soulful questions. These questions were asked to me. These questions were found by me, asked to other individuals, or something a roundabout way that I picked up from the net, or that maybe I've asked myself. And they are accumulation of many questions that some would call spiritual questions, but I tend to shy away a little bit from that word spiritual, even though I use it a lot in my own understanding of things. I don't want people to see the spiritual nature of things as being something woo-woo and ethereal and mystical and out there, when it is actually so very practical and realistic, as is all the teachings of yoga. I have been, as I've said, practicing and studying yoga for over a quarter of a century. In that realm of study, I've also looked into the wisdom offered in poetry and science and philosophy and psychology. And I try to gather as much information and data as I can so that I understand what it is this inner wisdom is telling me, so I can make a connection from the inside to the outside. And that's all that wisdom does, all that knowledge that we pick up does. It actually just points us inward to the experiential learning that we all need to do in order to live full and happy lives. And that, to me, is all under the umbrella of spirituality. So as I answer these questions and do these little very imperfect videos from a very imperfect person, I often say that I'm doing what's perfectly imperfect because the authenticity of these, I'm giving you the answer, telling you there's no editing, there's no revision, it's just this is it. Me in my imperfect form, with my hair all over the place sometimes, and my environment noisy and chaotic in the background, and it's just is what it is as far as I'm concerned. So I don't try to pretend otherwise to give you a perfect presentation, because it's not about me that is doing the video. It's about what this person is saying and learning and sharing. I did have some comments on some of the recent YouTube videos about individuals saying that they could help me make these videos more perfect so that they reached a wider audience and became, renowned in the YouTube world. And I never really responded. I don't know if it's just some type of business scam or if there's individuals really wanting to help, but regardless, it is not my intention to become known and a social influencer or anything like that. My teaching here has both selfish and altruistic motivation. Selfishly, I learn best when I teach and share. So if I'm learning very important information, I feel like I need to teach it so that I assimilate it and it becomes a part of my daily life. As well as it is, if I've known something that can help others, I want to share it as well. So that's why I share this information that I share and this learning and that I'm gathering, so that I can definitely help myself learn it, and that's the major motivation, and to assimilate it and learn to live by it. But it's also to help anyone out there who may be journeying along the same path and having questions and wondering. Now, I, as an ego, which is still very much attached to me, I am definitely by no means evolved or in that higher state of consciousness I someday hope to be in, but I am working my way there. That is the most important part of my life right now, is my sadhana, or my practice of becoming a little bit wiser and a little bit more in tune with what is real, a little more accepting of life as it is, and a little bit more conscious of what this entity I call me is experiencing, so that I can get beyond this entity I call me to the truth of who I am. That's a big long spiel, I know, but that is what I hope to do. But the ego in me, as I was trying to say, is still very much there and is almost embarrassed by this so-called exercise that I've taken on. It doesn't want the exposure of this, of all things, this imperfect, vulnerable human being that I am. It doesn't want it exposed out there. It wants to still create this image of something I'm not that will protect the vulnerable part of me and protect my samskaras and protect those trigger points we all have inside, that I have inside of me. So ego is not liking this exercise, and that's giving me even more motivation to do it, because it is in my better interest, and my goal, I guess, is to eventually leave this ego behind and to operate from the higher self. And that's a process, and it's a practice, like I said. So my practice is my most important part of my daily life right now, and that's what I'm sharing with you to some extent. La-di-la-di-la, I went on and on again, didn't I? I have a tendency to do that, and when I do, I lose my timer, so I'm going to get back on the timer here. And I'm going to begin by answering a question from the jar. So I'm going to reach in first of all, and I think I know what this question is going to be, so it's kind of a cheat, but not really a cheat. I'm going to look down, and yes, this is the question that I actually put in the jar this morning after listening to a Michael Singer podcast. What is omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient? What is omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient? So I'm going to take a deep breath. Actually, I will start my timer. And I'll take a deep breath. And I take this deep breath to ground me and keep me centered, so the ego is not answering the question and I'm answering it from a higher place. So the first thing I'm going to do is write down a word so that because I'm not the great at pronunciation, even though I work with literacy. So the first word, and I don't know if you can see that, omnipresent. The first word I'm talking about is omnipresent. And when you see that prefix in front of a word or that word root, it means all. So when I say omnipresent, I'm speaking to what is everywhere and everything. So what is everywhere and everything is what I'm referring to when I say omnipresent. And so if something is everywhere and everything, there's no limits, no borderlines, no boundaries. It's infinite. It's just spacious infinity, basically. And the second word that was asked of me is, what is omnipotent? Again, I'm hoping you can make out my writing. I'm just grabbing the first pen I have on a piece of scrap paper. Again, I'm not perfect. Omnipotent, so I'm speaking about everything or all. What is all powerful? What is all powerful? What has all the power in the world to it, all the energetic power to it? And everything, I have to stress, especially in the yogic terminology, is energy. And that's also in physics and other science, right? Everything is energy. We know that Albert Einstein referred to everything as the field, and then E equals MC squared. It's basically saying that everything, matter is basically just energy. And then we get into the quantum physicist's understanding of things, and we talk about the field of infinite potential. We look at these subatomic particles when we break down molecular structure, and we see these little tiny electrons with all this energy around them. It's the energy, the spacious energy, that is everything. So what is that gives everything its power, that beats our hearts and breathes our lungs, that makes the flower bloom and the tree drop its flowers in the fall, that makes the sky snow? What is that energy? What is that one thing that is omnipotent in our experience of life? And the third word was, again, an omni word, omniscient. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing this right. And that's how it should look. And omniscient means all-knowing. So we have this something in the universe that knows, observes everything, and knows everything. That is watching me as this tiny little dot on a speck of dust that we call Earth, spinning around on its axis, going around the sun once a year. What is it? What is that thing that knows, that's able to see me at the same time it sees the bird in South America, landing after hibernating, or something in the Antarctic, the penguins in the Antarctic cutting their eggs? What is it that knows everything, knows the answer to everything, knows it all? So what is it then that is all, that's everywhere and everything, all-knowing, all-powerful? What is it? Now, we look at this in terms of religion, and we're going to say God. We're going to say God is omnipresent, omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient. That's the only thing that is. And there's God with all these wonderful powers, and this ability to be everywhere at once, and this knowledge of everything. And here we are as these tiny little speck of dust, way down here, struggling to survive, fighting with our likes and our dislikes, trying to get what we can from life, manipulating life and other people and other things in every way we can, so we feel comfortable inside as these tiny little me's. This accumulation of learned experiences that we call the psyche, which we identify as the me, in these forms, these very finite, bordered forms we call a body. And we are down here and God is up there, but we're struggling, trying to get by, trying to get what we need from the world to feel okay inside. And we tend to look up to this God to help us and save us. But what we're asking this God to do, instead of moving ourselves up towards God, we're trying to pull God down into a form and into an idea that we can relate to. So we take God in this infinite, omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient form or nature that it is, and try to squish it and contract it and turn it down to something that we can relate to. And that becomes a concept or a belief that we adhere to in our religious practices. We've taken this everything that can only be experienced down into this tiny little idea or belief that we, as these dots on this speck of rotating or dust we call Earth, are experiencing. And it all becomes about me. If we were to realize that Chitta Shakti is who we are, Satchidananda is who we are that conscious energy that is everything, that is omnipotent, that omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient, then we would see that we are pieces of God, right? Instead of trying to bring God down into the human form, God is making humans in the likeness of Him. And I'm using the Him word only because it adheres to most religious ideations. And here we are. We have the ability to go to God and experience God, experience omnipresence, experience omnipotence, experience omniscience, and be that, fall back into that. But we're staring at these tiny little dusts and all their problems and their drama, and we get lost in that, and we forget that all that is back there, that God is back there, God is with us, God is in us. And we're directing it, all our attention to this tiny little thing that cannot be omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscience. Because the form isn't, and the psyche isn't. That's temporal and ever-changing, and it's only here for a short period of time, and it's very finite. But that's not who we are. We are this God nature that is inside these forms and these psyches. And if we become objective observers of what the psyche is doing and what this form is doing and what other psyches and forms are doing, standing back in the seat of consciousness and experiencing it, we will have a totally different experience and a totally different understanding of what God is and what we are. And we can recognize that omnipresence, omnipotence, omniscience outside ourselves. We'll see it inside ourselves. We will expand beyond that contracted little dot. In other words, once we get me out of the way, because man minus mind equals God. And Baba Mayer said that. Man minus mind equals God. So once we get the mind and the psyche and this idea of me out of the way, we can actually experience full consciousness. We can actually experience the omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient nature of who we truly are at the higher level. When we become the observers of psyche and the feelings and the thoughts and the ideas and the drama going on around us and what life is handing us, and stop fighting it and resisting it and struggling against it and just allowing it, observing it, falling back into that role of observer, falling back into awareness of being aware, we become what we always are. There is no borders anymore. There is no separation anymore. There's just the oneness. It's like realizing suddenly that we, as little waves on an ocean, we're always the ocean that made the wave. And so when the wave troughs and crests in its final form and is gone, it just falls back into the ocean and is the ocean again. The omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient ocean of life. The source of everything. And that's who we are at the higher level, the deeper level. And so understanding those three words is important to understanding our concept of God. Instead of limiting God and trying to make God small to fit us, we rise up to make ourselves grand to fit what God intended for us as waves on an ocean. Anyway, that's all I have to say today. I hope that makes sense. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day. Namaste.